singing it has been this morning. God, we pray from Noel Davidson. Noel has spent some time in Kenya. You'll remember he was here, seems like a few weeks, I guess it was a few months ago now. And but he's going to come and share with us about Kenya. I talked to him earlier this week a little bit by text, and we agreed on a time, and then I told him this morning, you take as long as you want, okay? And he said some of the people that went on the trip were given 5 minutes. We don't want to do that. We want to be, we want to hear and be blessed and recognize what God has done while Noel's on the trip. So Noel, if you'll come, I'm going to give you this microphone.
My first time using one of these.
That's all right. Put that on top.
You know, in hindsight, I should have asked before. Oh, I see. Okay. I'm almost there, folks. Is it coming through? Yes. Okay, sweet. Thank you. All right, good morning. Good morning. So, yes, I'll move back a little bit. I get loud sometimes, so honestly, I was actually considering in my head, I probably don't even need a mic, because I'll probably just yell a lot, so we'll see how that goes. So yes, my name is Noel Davison, for any of you I don't have the privilege of meeting yet. I come from Joplin, Missouri, about 2 hours from here. We have a lot of restaurants, but I'd say like we have the same amount of fun as an average town, which is not much. Joplin is just kind of there in the world. The only reason stuff happens is because we border states. But I actually wanted to start today with a little bit of a lesson. So please just invest a little bit of time with this, and if you want to zone out the rest of the trip, that's perfectly fine. You can just at least come home with something today. So I wanted to tell you the language of Swahili, or at least a few things. So I love that you guys will say good morning when you come up here, so I thought I'd teach you how to say good morning in Swahili. So there we say, habari asubuhi. Could you repeat that with me? Habari asubuhi. Yes. It's a bit of a mouthful, but then whenever you hear that, you say very good as a response, or Missouri sana. So I wanted to try that with you guys. Habari asubuhi. Good job, Missouri sana. You guys are naturals. So that is one of the words. And then there's some other fun ones, like if you want to say a student is being crazy, the word wazimu is used, which means mad. So frequently I love to tell the kids during VBS, I was like, wewe wazimu, which means you crazy. But enough about me. John, if you could get some of those slides up. So yeah, I brought this little slideshow with me, and I just wanted to show you guys some stuff that I got to experience. So, as John said, yes, I was in Kenya for the past 2 months, and specifically I went to the capital of Kenya, Nairobi. So, you'll get to see a picture of kind of just like my view of Nairobi from where I worked. So, I promise I'm not going to make this too heavy on information, or I'll try to, but essentially, I was a part of a team where we were branched out to different schools throughout Kenya that are funded by Missions of Hope International, or MOHI as we call them. So I had the privilege of working, this is the balcony view like I said, and the building I'm taking this picture from is called Pangani. So I think the next slide will show, oh sorry, no. That is my team I went with. It's a bit hard to see them, but there are 13 people in there. That gentleman on the far right is our driver, Steve. He was wonderful. But we were 13 people, and we all went to different centers. So I, along with 4 other people, got to go to Pangani, which might be the 3rd slide? Yes, okay. It says right there, Pangani. So yes, that's the center right there. It is huge, like 5 floors. And fun fact, for all the touristy stuff, the top floor is where the gift shop is, so you have a lot of time to think about if you really want that something from the gift shop, because there are going to me trudge up the stairs and be like, I don't know if this is really worth the impulse buy right now, but yeah, they had a lot of great stuff. I have a Kenyon belt I got from there, so if you want to look at that later, I'll try and make it not weird. This is going off the rails. So, I probably should just move on next to the first thing I should have done when I came up here, and that's another Swahili word, which is asante sana. That means thank you very much. And I want to extend that to all of you, asante sana. You all supported me, and I remember when I first came on the stage to tell you guys a bit about myself, I was very, very nervous about doing this. And I'm still nervous a bit, but the ability to be able to come here and all of you to hear what I had to say, and then after church, so many of you came up and just said, thanks for coming here. I'm glad that we got to hear from you. And I believe that it was one of the Johns who I had said, I really appreciate this. Well, I said, I really appreciate this, and I don't even know if I'm going to be able to go. But then they said, no, you're going. And that money, like the money you all so generously gave me is the reason I went there. So, asante sana for everything that you've given. That has been such a huge blessing for me. And so with these next slides, because of your investment, I was able to meet some wonderful people, which will be the next couple of slides. So these are just different people. The first slide, if you would go back to that, please. On the left, it was my mentor I got to work with. His name was Pastor David. He is a man that you are not able to have a conversation without him saying, we thank God, or God is good. And I don't know, at first it was it was weird to hear that at first. But it was a good weird, because the more I got to hear from him, the more it's ingrained in my head. Yeah, we thank God for everything. He thanked him for even just being able to get up out of bed, and that was something that was really cool. On the right, that is Carol. She worked in what was called the spiritual department, and the spiritual department basically is kind of like what John does back there. They're the people that run everything behind the scenes. They make sure that church events are happening. They make sure that Pagani is not drowning in financial debt. They're making sure that everything is running smoothly. You can go to the next slide if you'd like to. And so then that is also Edith in the middle. She also worked in the spiritual department. Both Carol and Edith are very sweet ladies, very funny, and it was really cool to get to hear their faith, even though they're doing something that, unfortunately, not a lot of people are going to be able to see. They probably don't get the credit they deserve for their work. John probably doesn't get all the credit he deserves. I'm not trying to, sorry, that wasn't meant to be passive-aggressive towards the church, being you guys are really needed. No, it's just more sometimes you're doing stuff behind the scenes, and it is easy to feel that bitterness, well, I'm doing all this stuff. How come, I don't know, sometimes you're not given the same approval or love as a pastor? But it's just as important. And of course, I'm sure you all are wonderful. You all are very, you're very connected. So it's really cool to get to see how you all, love each other. So I'm sure that you do the same thing. But sometimes it is tough whenever you're doing things behind the scenes, and it just feels like no one appreciates you. But God does appreciate all that we do, whether it is obvious kingdom work or something big for America, or just not at all. And that's what they did. Also Sharon on the right, she is a receptionist. And if there is a more category for someone underappreciated, it would be a receptionist. Because I don't even know what receptionists do half the time, I'll be honest. I see them in offices, I always hear them, but sometimes all I know is they pick up a phone and answer some stuff. But she does a lot. She kept morale up in a sense. I'm sorry if anyone's a receptionist here. You do great work. I'm just being vulnerable here and saying I don't know what they do. So, yeah, Sharon, she is a receptionist, and she just would always keep morale up. She is also the spiritual department. She always kept things going behind the scenes, making sure events were planned out, and she was one of the first people to call me their friend there, which was really good for me because the trip got lonely at points. So getting to hear someone just randomly tell me, hey, I love you as a friend, it was really encouraging. And that man on the left is one of the strangest men I've ever met, but one of the coolest men. His name's Anthony. He had so many fun little things he did. He was another one of our driver, a faster driver. I kid you not, he had a playlist of songs, and he had almost every rap song you would hear in Fast and the Furious, like, on his playlist. And for good reason. That man would get us to places fast. But he also had fun little things, like, in the morning when we need to go, he would always go, okay, start walking. And so everyone in our group would always go, start walking. And I still do it whenever, like, I need to go somewhere. And what was great about Anthony is that while he was funny and just a very goofy guy, he very clearly still loves God. And he showed that just like, he had to get up late at night, he had to pay money to police to get us to places. He basically sacrificed a lot this summer, and he deserves full commendation for that, because, I mean, he got us to places where we need to be working, and that was amazing. And really, I bring all these people in, and I have a point to this, I promise. Still working on, trying to segment this to a lesson, but there is a point where all of these people I'm talking about here, they're not just my friends that I have the blessing of meeting, but they also are the people that were doing amazing things for God. If you would like to go to the next slide, I don't know if there's... Yes, all they are doing is doing this all for these kids. It might not be obvious in this picture, but Pangani alone has around 400 to 500 kids running through it. That is preschool to 8th grade, and there are just countless amounts of kids. I was not able to meet all of them, and I unfortunately forgot a lot of names because, well, I mean, when you're, there's another Swahili word, a white person is Mzungu, and so when you are one of the only Mzungus running around the school, they remember your name a lot easier. So then there'd be days I'd be walking through like on the first floor, and I hear on the 5th floor, Noel! And I just look up, and there's just a kid waving, and unfortunately I don't remember his name. Not because he's not lovely, the kids are amazing, but because there's so many of them. But that's what's so amazing about it, honestly, that all of these kids, the next slides will show, even though there are a lot of kids, all of them were so sweet, all of them were so passionate about what they were doing. They did something that I haven't seen a lot in school, that I wasn't like when I was a student. They loved their education. They loved being able to get up in the morning and go to history class, get to see their teacher, their friends. And some of these kids I really got to know personally, like in the next slides. That's Esther on the right. She is a deputy president. That's what they call, like, basically their hall monitor system. And she was proud of it. She wore that name tag every single day. She strutted into a classroom with full confidence. She was just happy to be able to go to school. These boys on the left were maniacs almost all the time, and they always were running out of their classroom to try and find me just so they could ask me questions about America. And they were amazing. Specifically, Gift on that far left doing this with his hand. Gift was, for lack of a better term, a gift to me being able to go and see live. You can go to the next slide. These are kids on the right. I specifically had the blessing of working with 7th and 8th graders throughout this entire trip. So I got to really communicate with them, and I got to meet a lot of them. And they are all so eccentric and funny. And the thing that really surprised me about these kids is that they are amazingly smart. For example, this girl on the left, her name is Caroline. So for a bit of reference here, they would ask me a lot of questions, so I just decided when I was brought into a classroom, I just say, okay, what's a question you want to ask Mzungu, an American? And so it was the normal stuff, like they'll say, like, what is your talent? Or where do you come from? Or is Barack Obama still the president? And you'd go, no, he is not. But then Caroline raises her hand just in the front row, and she asks, I kid you not, why did God create humans when he knew they were going to sin? Yeah. I went from pizza, donuts, Die Hard, and then it's just like that. It's like, that's tough. And she's 13 years old. I go to a Bible college where I know people that are scared to ask those questions, and she asked it to me just up front and center for all her classmates to hear. And I mean, the church has been struggling with that question for a long time, and the fact that someone who I just thought like someone that age wouldn't ask was thinking those questions. And she had more questions later on, ones that really got me to think, and ones that led me to have to like really dig into the Bible to try and find something to give somewhat of an answer. It was amazing. These kids are doing so much and giving so much to God and to their community. That's what Mohi's doing. That's what all those people I showed you are doing. It's not just they're my friends, so therefore I should talk about them. But no, they are people who are serving God in Kenya and doing amazing things in Kenya. That's really like something I have learned that you guys have helped me with, that you guys brought me to learn probably one of the most important lessons I needed to know. It's very easy for us in America because we're very lucky with stuff. I'm very lucky with stuff. I'm lucky to have these clothes. I'm lucky to have this watch. I'm lucky to have so much. And yet, even though we hear God's doing stuff all over the world, I think it's really hard for us to understand what it looks like or even just recognize God is the God of the universe until we go somewhere else or to another culture or even just like another city sometimes in our country and we get to see what God's doing. Because, I never thought I would experience a church outside of the typical American church. Even like coming to this church where there isn't like a full-scale band or there isn't like a haze machine or lights and all that fancy doodad stuff we really don't need. Like even doing that is like showing me the variety and how unique church can be. But that uniqueness isn't wrong. I didn't come here and I had to realize like this isn't wrong just because you guys don't have all this. It's different. That's like one of the biggest things they told us at orientation, is that a lot of this isn't wrong, it's different. But that difference is what makes it so beautiful. That's what made Kenya so beautiful, made these kids so beautiful, is that I went into this just only in my American context, only Noel Davison context. And God brought me out and showed me that He is not just the God of my mind, not just the God that I put in a box. He's the God of the universe, the God who is bringing people to faith and doing amazing things. I now have the privilege of saying I have seen miracles. I have the privilege of saying, like, I went from just hearing about demonic warfare and spiritual warfare in the Bible or just hearing about other people. I've experienced it now. I have witnessed people that are under demonic possession. I've heard more stories about horrible things. I've seen horrible things that I'll be honest, I didn't want to see. No one wants to see terrible things. But I've witnessed it now, and God had me witness it, that you all helped me witness, because it made me recognize in all of the brokenness and all of the craziness of the world and the variety in the world, that God is God everywhere. And that God is so beautiful. To make a young little girl like her ask some really tough questions so young. If she is thinking this hard now at 13, imagine what she's going to do when she's an adult. Imagine what all of these kids are going to do when they're adults. And that's amazing. And I got to witness that. I got to witness all of these amazing things because you guys helped me get there, because God forced me into this situation, because He had me meet the CEOs of Mohi at Ozark Christian College, and I basically got pulled into an internship. So, just a quick little story. I went to a lunch of Mary Kamau, who is one of the CEOs. I went up to her, and for some reason that week, even though missions had never been in my mind, I wanted to hear everything she had to say. So I just went up to her, and my words were, I'd like to know more about the mission field. In my mind, I was thinking, a few questions. So, where do you come from? What led you to this? But Mary, her hearing, I want to know more, goes, oh, you want to be a summer intern? Fantastic. Here is a card. I'll hook you up with this guy. We'll get you on the email, and you get all set up. I was just too scared to tell her no. I was just like, Mary's a very powerful woman, very passionate. So, you don't say no to her. And through that, I ended up being forced into the situation. I never would have imagined, I didn't even know where my grandma went to church, I'll be honest. I didn't know about Kingsville Baptist. But now I have the privilege of meeting you guys, of getting to be up here and talk to you guys. And that's because of what God did. There are some more slides if you'd like to go there, John. I had the privilege of meeting these children. That is Hannah on the right. She's one of my teammates. I had the privilege of being teaching buddies with her, basically. We were teaching classrooms together. We even hosted VBS games together. She put up with me a lot. And through that, I got to meet these 4 wonderful children. On the left to right, that is Gift, Lucky Boga, Zubeda, and Veronica. All 4 of them, 2 of them, Lucky and Zubeda, were mentorship kids for Pastor David. And through that, I got to get to know them. I got to ask them a lot of questions. I got to hear the same kind of questions Caroline asked. With Gift, he just started showing up. Like, he would just come by the office to ask me questions. So eventually, he kept showing up so much, I pulled him out of the classroom. And I was like, all right, you're coming to mentorship too. And then Veronica just came along for the ride because Zubeda brought her. And man, I don't think we realize sometimes like what a blessing people are in our lives until they're not in our lives anymore. And those kids were those blessings for me. They were the hardest to say goodbye to. They were wonderful, so precious, so funny. They are going to do amazing things. And again, Asante Sana for you guys letting me get to go meet them. Because, man, one thing I've really recognized here is that for them, those uniforms sometimes are the only clothes they have. There was a week where they were allowed to just wear their own clothes, and they only had one other outfit. And I don't say that to try and throw a pity party for them because they don't have the clothes we do. But really, they ended up teaching me. It was like I got told to teach them, and they taught me way more. And that's usually how it goes for teachers, right? And through that, I recognized that they may only have 2 pairs of outfits compared to me, but what they have instead is far more joy, far more contentment with the things they do have, and far more love for Jesus. And that's something I recognize. I think I want to come back to America with, hopefully not an axe, but an encouragement that in America, the problem is not that other countries have less, but the problem is America has too much. Now, we have too much. I remember there was a sermon I had to hear about democratic capitalism, basically material possessions, that commercials always are trying to tell us, you need this new car, or you need to go eat McDonald's, and like all this stuff that we really don't need, especially McDonald's. No one needs to eat at McDonald's. We are probably cut off at least 30 years of our lifespan eating there. But my point in that is that I fed into it. I mean, I was the kid that always wanted the new video game. I'm the kid that had all the Spider-Man merchandise, like this watch. I fed into it. And this trip, God showed me that it's not that they need more Spider-Man merchandise. They need a McDonald's. It's that America needs to really strip down what we have in order to recognize how much we really have. One of our founding fathers of the church is Paul. And if you remember Philippians 3, he tells the Philippians this giant list of like, he's saying, I basically had everything. Benjamin, Pharisee, very rich, I was persecuting Christians, and that's what was and is still the cool thing in life. But then Philippians 3, 7 and 8, you probably all know this, but whatever gain I had, I counted as loss for the sake of Christ. Indeed, I count everything as loss, knowing Jesus Christ my Lord. For his sake I have suffered the loss of all things and count them as rubbish, in order that I may gain Christ. And that's something I need to do more of. When I come back, I really need to recognize, like, if I have too much clothes that it's overfilling my drawers when I go to a dorm room, I don't need those clothes. Other people need those clothes. I need to start recognizing how fortunate I am, so then I can give to people. And this is not me trying to go holier than thou on anyone. This is really, I think we all need to do this. If we have extra money, then do we really need to go to a restaurant, go to Applebee's? Why don't we give that to somebody who actually could use it? Or the food, like, I see homeless people a lot in Joplin, and it hurts because I want to be able to help, but sometimes there is that, the reliance they have. And that's not to say that that's everyone, but we know that people can manipulate situations. So instead of giving money, Like, I want to give money, but maybe instead I give food, or I give time. Oh my gosh, Joplin is so full of people that I have walked past so many times that I've just ignored because, I don't know, they're wearing the rainbow in an inappropriate way, or because they're having a parade, or something that is offending me as a person. But I need to break down the walls that I put up. That's what God did when he brought me here. He had me go into the slums of Kenya, and that really shows how hurting people are. If you want to go back to that first slide of the outside view of the city. One more back. Asante Sana John for putting up with me just randomly doing this. Can we give a round of applause for John real quick? Thank you. But this city, I don't know if you can see it from the projector, but a lot of them are broken down buildings. A lot of them are made of tin. They truly, if we are thinking like even the lowest class in America has it a lot better than a lot of kids here do. But they're not starving for contentment. They're not starving for joy. Because Mohi, Mission of Hope International, has given them that joy. We're starving for the gospel in this country right now. And what needs to happen is that I needed to break down the walls of going out into the slums and going to people and going to homes where, yeah, it smelled bad. Yeah, it looked dangerous. But did Jesus ever call me or anyone else to change the world by playing it safe? He asked us to go out to these people, to go out to the tax collectors, to the sinners. And for me, that means I need to step off my pedestal of being church-raised Christian boy, and I need to go talk to people that have made me uncomfortable. Like, we probably all heard the analogy of that person who sits alone at lunch. That still happens in Christian communities. That still happens at a Bible college. So we need to start doing that. Be willing to be uncomfortable. Talking to those neighbors that haven't talked to us before. I need to do more of that. Because it's when we do that that we break down the walls we've set up and truly start evangelizing the way Jesus wants to. And we can evangelize anywhere. I think it is a blessing for me to stand up here on this podium, and John always does a great job. I actually had the blessing of being able to look at some of the sermons online, and you are great at what you do. Yes, you are. Come on. But in saying that, we don't need to be on a pulpit in order to share the gospel. We don't need to sit up here or go to Bible college to get a pastor's degree in order to share the gospel. Everyone in their jobs, in their professions, in your school, anyone can share the gospel. And ministries everywhere. It's not just Kenya. It's not just Australia, a developing country, a developed country. It's everywhere. And I know that there's a lot of scattered points here, but if I am going to be up here telling you about what my trip is, I have to talk about what God did, because it cannot just be what Noel Davison did. Because that's not what you guys gave me money for. You didn't give it so Noel Davison could go on a trip. You gave it so I could be used by God to do something amazing. And if you, John, like to go through some more slides, there's just a few more things I want to talk, and then I will stop rambling. Right there. These pictures show what Mohi has been doing for the kingdom of God. This was an event on Saturday called Ignite. Basically, it's like if anyone's here heard of CIY Move, or just a week-long trip where people go and come back followers of Jesus. It's one of those things. And this Ignite, at first it was interesting because Kenyan church is a lot different from our church. They sing different songs. They dance around during it. They have different scripture readings. The pastors, when they get up on the pulpit, they could be talking so smooth and so kind to you, and then when they get up here, they're slamming their fists down, they are yelling, they are proclaiming. The first church I went to, Pastor David, the mentor I had, went from a very smooth voice, very calm guy, and he was screaming, "And David knelt on the ground, and the oil went on." Like, it was like that the whole time. That's almost every church in Kenya. It's great. And so I say that even though that was weird for me, and during Ignite, I personally was not spiritually fed by the sermon, not because it was bad, but because it was different. I wasn't used to it. 30 young children in that crowd. They were not wearing Mohi uniforms. Very few of them were. 30 kids went up on that stage and gave their lives to Jesus. And that was amazing. I couldn't help but cry. And that's what Mohi is doing. That's what I got to be a part of. That's what you guys let me be a part of, is getting to see how they are truly making an impact. We went on a mission trip, and subconsciously I was thinking like, oh, we're doing this because they need help, right? No. Just because they don't have a fancy light system or don't have all the money of America, that doesn't mean they need help. They want help. They invite people in. Kenyans are very welcoming, and that was amazing. But they don't need help. What they're doing is working. They're dealing with spiritual warfare because what they're doing is serving God, because it is making an impact. It is bringing those young children who are in the slums, who are dealing with really difficult circumstances, political problems, lack of hope, not knowing where the next meal coming from. And they are bringing those people to the one who fills all desires, and that is Jesus Christ. And it was amazing. You guys let me do all that. You can go forward, John, if you'd like to. So I just want to end on this. They have a system where you can sponsor a child. It's $38 a month. That is $1.25 a day according to their website. I never thought about it that way, but if you are thinking like $1.25 a day, then hey, there you go. It's 38. So Missions of Hope International right there. That's their logo. Made by my host missionary, Pat. I didn't get to talk about him. He's a wonderful guy. He makes a lot of this stuff for the website. That's not largely important. But you can sponsor a child. I'm not trying to turn this into a convict you have to, because no, you don't have to. But if I'm coming up here, I can't just be saying, here's what I know Davison did in Kenya, and it was pretty cool. Thanks, Keensville. No, I have to give credit where credit's deserved and say, no. Missions of Hope International is doing amazing work for the kingdom. And if you've heard anything else from what I say today, please consider supporting them so that another child may come to an Ignite, that another child may be able to get into Pangani, be able to put on that uniform, to get the amazing teaching from the teachers that are there, to see the pastors and those amazing employees I got to meet. I encourage you that we will be that change. Not that Kenya needs our change, because they're doing great on their own. But God invites us every day to do things for His kingdom, to come into church and worship Him, to give offering. So before we decide to go get lunch after church, maybe instead I need to look at my wallet and say, who's going to need it more? Here's one last Swahili word, and I hope that everyone here will use it more often. Bwana asifiwe. That means praise the Lord. They say it all the time there, and really, I want to start saying it more, because He is good. He led me to you guys, to learn from you guys, and that is a blessing beyond belief. So, Bwana asifiwe. Thank you so much.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I've seen a change in Noble since last time I saw it. You know, it's a wonderful thing when you make yourself available to serve a God, and when you see what God is doing. In my mind this week,